Hey everybody, welcome to the Jim Masters Show live entertainment lifestyle talk show series. It's good to see all of your smiley faces. How's everybody doing today? We're on in a special time with a very special guest. It is 1 p.m. Eastern here right now and 10 a.m. Pacific. We welcome everybody from coast to coast all across the United States as well as Canada and everybody watching internationally as well. Our entertainment lifestyle talk show series has a wonderful international audience with viewers who watch from Europe and Africa and Asia and Australia and all points beyond. And it's a pleasure to have you here. We're also going to be on tonight as well, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, which is our regularly scheduled broadcast hours, with Burt Ward, who played Robin on Batman. That's coming up tonight. But right now, we've got an amazing guest known for suspense, crime, horror, thriller, books, novels, all kinds of incredible things that people really seem to soak up extraordinarily. He is so well known and popular, and his books are riveting. And I'm talking who about? J.D. Barker, of course, New York Times, an international best-selling author. He is absolutely amazing. I've read a multitude of his books, and several of my friends and family have as well. Matter of fact, a lot of you said, hey, get JD on the show. So we worked all of that out, and he is here with us live and direct from his beautiful home in New Hampshire in the United States. And I tell you, if you have not picked up one of his books, you need to, because you're just going to be swept away. It's really incredible. And he's also worked with James Patterson and others. He's had interactions with Stephen King and Spielberg and other greats. And it's just a real pleasure to have him here on the show. Going to welcome him in just a second. First, let's check in with some of our viewers all around the world. They're called the Lovities, because one time I said the show has a lot of light love and, levity. And it sure does. And so I slipped up. It was a Freudian slip, I think. And I said levity. And all of a sudden, the viewers said, hey, we're going to become part of your levity squad. We're going to be your levity squad. You could be Mr. Levity. We're going to call this Levity Hall. And I said, all right, the world could use a little more of that. So that's what it is. We welcome you to the show. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, so you don't miss any of our daily live episodes. We've done the show one full year, over 410 live daily episodes of our entertainment lifestyle talk show series, which really amazes me how we do this. Since I work full-time in television and radio, it's a little bit of a juggle, but it's a great juggle. We are loving this with all of you. So don't forget to click that notification bell, so that way there you don't miss any of our daily episodes of our series. Also, we do pop-up shows, we do on-location features, and all host of incredible things for all of you guys. Of course, tell your friends about the show. We say hello to all the Lovities. Juanita is here from South Africa. Hi, Jim and Levity Squad. So excited for the conversation with J.D. Barker. Absolutely. Nice to see you once again in South Africa. Juanita, Kathy Short is watching from Cleveland live right now. We are live. Good afternoon, Jim and Lovities. I hope you are all enjoying this wonderful sunny day. Here, we're in the greater New York area, between New York and Boston on the southern New England coast. Stunning day today. Crystal is here. Hi, Jim, and happy Tuesday. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Looking forward to an amazing show, inspiring conversation. Good to have you with us, Crystal, as well. Thanks for joining us. and all these great folks that are tuning in. June Rachelson Aspa, who's a big fan as well of J.D. Barker. I'm so excited. I read his books. We love that. And hi there to you as well. Welcome. It's nice to see you here. Andrea and Mary Bishop is in Florida. Hello, Jim and lovely friends. Good to see you as well. And Wozniak watching from Jacksonville, Florida. Hope everyone is having a terrific afternoon. Hello, Jim and lovely family. Good to see you as well. Claudia Bartow is here. Jennifer Barry, you're going to love this one. I know you're Zen there in Allentown, Pennsylvania. New moon blessings, everyone. Blessed be. Good stuff. Juanita, I know you've got, since I told you about him, you're really hooked on JD's work. Busy with, she had a broken thing where her heart should be. Wowzers, loving his writing style. New fan here. I'm glad that I was able to turn you on to his incredible work. He really is amazing. And he used to be a book doctor too. And we're going to tell you what a book doctor is and some of that work. We're so excited to have him here on the show, again, live and direct from New Hampshire. He is an international best-selling American author whose work has been broadly described as suspense thrillers, often incorporating elements of horror, crime, mystery, science fiction, and the supernatural. He grew up in Lombard, Illinois, and spent the first 14 years of his life in Crystal Lake, Illinois. Staunch introvert, he was rarely seen without a book in his hand, devouring both the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew series by the age of 6 before moving on to classics such as Dickens and Twain. And of course, the discovery of Shelley, Stoker, and Poe fueled a fire. And it wasn't long before he was writing tales of his own, which he shared with friends and family. These early stories centered around witches and ghosts thought to inhabit the woods surrounding their home. At 14, his family relocated to Inglewood, Florida, a climate better suited to his father's profession as a contractor. He attended Lemon Bay High School and graduated in '89, knowing he wanted to pursue a career in the arts, but unsure of a direction. He enrolled at the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, where he later obtained a degree in business. While in college, one of his writing assignments found its way into the hands of Paul Galata of Circus Magazine, and Galata reached out to Barker and asked him to join the staff of 25th Parallel magazine, which he worked alongside the man who would later become Marilyn Manson. Yes, assignments dropped him into the center of pop culture. In 1991, he branched out, interviewing celebrities for the likes of 17, Teen Beat, and other national and local publications. Syndicated a small newspaper column called Revealed, which centered around the investigation of haunted places and supernatural occurrences. While he often cites these early endeavors as a crash course in tightening prose, his heart remained with fiction. And then began working as a book doctor. We're going to leave it there and have him share the rest with us. But that's just a little bit about our incredible guest. He's done it all. And again, he's a New York Times and international best-selling author, J.D. Barker. Pleasure to have him here. J.D., welcome to the show. It's a pleasure.
Hey, man, I'm just going to hang out and wait for Burt Ward.
Batman. He's going to show up tonight in the Batmobile.
You got to love that show. That was one of my favorites.
Oh, my God. What were growing up, what were some TV shows and maybe movies that inspired you early on?
I actually didn't get a whole lot. We didn't have a TV in the house. We grew up without, my parents didn't want us watching television. So whatever TV I saw, I had to sneak over to my best friend David's house, who lived behind us. And, you know, back then we had 3 channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And you actually watched stuff while it was live on TV, and there was no, streaming. None of that kind of stuff existed. At one point, I remember his parents bought a giant satellite dish that must have been about 2 meters across, and they got HBO in Spanish or some craziness like that. But that was kind of it. But I do remember we did watch the original Batman, Lost in Space. Yeah, tons of cartoons on Saturday.
Twilight Zone,
Outer Limits. I snuck in on Sunday afternoons, they always had the creature feature, so we tried to catch that. For the most part, though, when I was home, we were reading. That my parents, they didn't want us watching TV. They wanted us to have a book in our hands, and that started at a really early age in our house.
Yeah. How did that inspire you? The fact that you were really reading books and you were soaking it all up versus maybe some of the other things that were going on around you?
It's a weird thing, because when I didn't know any better. Not really. Because we had books. My parents were reading to us. When we were 1, 2 years old. So it started from the beginning of all memories. And then I was reading myself by the time I was 3. By the time I got into kindergarten, I had gone through. You rattled off all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
it makes me tired just listening to that.
You've done a few things.
Yeah, but I had finished up the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drews by the time I got into kindergarten, and then I started moving on to other stuff. And it's a weird thing because books are like a movie in your mind. Your mind basically fills in the blanks, and to me, it's better than watching a movie or watching television. Like that feels very limited to me. Now I do that to relax, along with reading. I probably read like 2 or 3 books a week, and we've got a gorgeous home theater in this place, which we finished just in time for the pandemic to hit. So I think I've reached the end of Netflix, and now I'm starting over because we watch so much stuff. But I try to absorb as much as I can. It's all creative, and it helps fuel the machine.
Yeah, absolutely. How does being in New Hampshire inspire any of the work that you do? Obviously, you're there in New England, and it's a beautiful area, and you're in a really cool house too, right?
Yeah, my wife found this place. We were living in Pittsburgh when the books actually started to take off. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So my last day job that I had, the last real job, I was a chief compliance officer for a brokerage firm, which is as horrible as it sounds, but it pays really good. And we were down in Florida, and we kind of had all the trappings of that salary. We had a big house, we had cars, we had boats. It wasn't something we could just walk away from. And my wife knew that I wanted to write books for a living. So at one point, she pulled me aside and she said, "Okay, let's sell everything that we own, buy a duplex in Pittsburgh, rent out one side, live in the other, and just get our monthly expenses down to the absolute minimum, and then live off the savings long enough for you to be able to write that book." And that's what we did. And I remember her showing me the bank statement on the day that we got to that point, and she goes, "You have 18 months to make this work. Go."
Yeah, right.
Nothing like putting your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
But it ended up working out. And at one point, I scored a 7-figure deal for my second book. A TV show and movie and stuff behind it. And we realized we're living in Pittsburgh. We don't have to. We can kind of
Right.
live anywhere in the world that we want to. And she found this really cool island right off the coast of Portsmouth in New Hampshire, because we had both missed the water quite a bit. When you
Yeah.
grew up in Florida, you're at the ocean, you're water skiing, you're doing all those kinds of things. And if you move to someplace like Pittsburgh, none of that exists. So you just start jonesing for that beach.
Right.
But I also missed having seasons. When you're in Florida, it's 200 degrees when you walk to the mailbox, and seasons are either hot or hotter. There's no in between. And I missed having snow and that kind of thing. So she found this little island off Portsmouth, and we kind of get the best of all those worlds, because we're right. I can see the ocean from my office window. But we've got New England snow, and that's about as crazy as snow can get. So we see, we've got all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And being on an island, it's kind of like stepping back in time, because you have to actually walk to the post office to get your mail. They don't actually deliver it here.
Right. Right.
There's a gazebo in front of the town hall. It's literally like stepping back into 1950. My daughter can walk to elementary school when she's old enough. It's right across the street from us. So it's just a great place to live.
So I mentioned in the intro that you were also a book doctor. Tell the audience what a book doctor does.
Yeah, that's kind of where all this stuff started. I was working for newspapers and magazines back in the day. And when you do that, you quickly realize everybody has a novel in a desk drawer somewhere, they've been working on for the last 10 years, and it's almost done. It's 500,000 words. It's this big, and it's not almost done. It's a complete mess. But I was kind of, at first, I was the go-to guy for grammar and punctuation. Like, my editor would just give me regular articles to do that for. And when word got around that I was good at it, these people that had these books in their drawers started to reach out to me, and they're like, "Hey, do you mind taking a look at this?" And I started doing that. And at first, I was just correcting the real obvious stuff, and then I started weighing in on the story, which at the time I had no idea that this was even a thing, but that's called developmental editing. And I just sort of fell into it, and I just, because I had read so much, I understood what story structure was. I understood, what was supposed to happen and when, and I just kind of used that knowledge to help tweak these books. And I did that while I was working the corporate job, because my mom and my dad, they drilled into my head that you can't make a living as a writer. Like, you can't pursue that. That's not a real job. So I was working the corporate job, and I would come home at night and I would work on these book doctor projects. And over 20 some years, I had 6 different books that hit the New York Times bestseller list, all with other people's names on the cover. And that gets really old. And when that 6th one hit up, that's when my wife and I had that talk, and we decided to actually do something about it.
That is really, really cool. The very first book I know, the characters, the books, the story, they're really like children to you, aren't they? They're like your babies. I mean, I know other authors through the years that I've interviewed, and playwrights and those who write screenplays and whatever it may be. They're very close to the characters, they're very close to the story, and they're very protective of those characters and of the story. I would imagine you are too. You almost think of them as your babies in a way. You nurture them, you care for them, you watch over them, you make sure that everything is taken care of with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Stories are character. That's one of the things I drill into. I've got a lot of mentoring clients and people that I help with their writing. Still, I like to do that as much as I can. And when I start a story, I basically create my premise. I know what the story is going to be about. I've got my loose plot. I know where my beginning is, something, a couple events maybe in the middle, and I know how I'd like it to end. But then I set to work on creating the characters, and I don't start writing that first page until those people are as real to me as my best friend. Like Sam Porter is the detective in my Fourth Monkey series, and like I could drop him at the entrance to Disney World, and I could tell you what ride he's going to go to first and what he's going to eat for lunch. None of these things will ever end up in a book, but it's because I know him as well as I know any other person in my life, and that's key, I think, to writing a good book. As long as you know your characters, once you get to that point, you can drop them in the beginning of that story and kind of let them feel it out.
Absolutely. Now, this one here, you self-published this, right?
Yeah, I did. I kind of fell into that. I originally wrote the book, and Stephen King read parts of it and gave me permission to use some of his characters from Needful Things in it, which I thought was a slam dunk when it came to publishing. So I got a little cocky at that point. I sent out query letters to about 200 different agents, and I made a big mistake. I used a form letter. I literally sent out a to whom it may concern letter to agents, kind of expecting them to come around, and they didn't. I didn't know any better at the time. So I ended up self-publishing it, but I hired professionals across the board. To me, it was really important that book looked like it came out of, something like Penguin Random House, regardless of it being indie published or not. So I had professional copy editors, formatters, cover designers, everybody that they would have hired, I hired. And then I put the book out there. Publishers Weekly at one point caught wind of my failed trip to Stephen King's house, and they wrote up an article about it, and that kind of lit the fire under sales, and it ended up selling about 250,000 copies as an indie title. And that really put me on the radar of the traditional publishers when that second book was done, because I had that track record behind me.
Yeah, absolutely. That book was so well received too, huh?
Yeah, it did. It did really, really well. It's funny because it's the only book that I've written that hasn't been optioned yet.
Yeah.
It's because of the Stephen King angle, like that helps sell the book, but at the same time, it scares off a lot of the studios. They're not sure what to do with the legalities of all that. But it was a fun story to write.
Tell us a little bit about it for those who are getting intrigued by it now, might want to get it.
Yeah, it's about an author who's writing a book about a witch, and he thinks that book that he's writing is fiction, but in truth, he's actually telling the story of somebody who really lived, and she's using that book to bring herself back to life. Unwittingly, he's doing this. He has no idea that that's actually happening as the story plays out.
That's really, really cool. I mean, the amount of books too is pretty prolific. Tell us about this one here. This is more recent, right? This one here.
Yeah, that's my most recent title. It just came out in February. This one was fun. It's basically been dubbed as Die Hard meets talk radio. So we've got a female talk show host, very similar to like a female Howard Stern. And she's on the air in the morning, and somebody calls in and wants to play a game. And she doesn't realize at the time what she's getting herself into, but he basically starts giving her a series of choices, and every one of those choices have consequences, and it just completely escalates from there. I honestly just wanted to write something where I got to blow up New York.
Yes.
and I more or less do it in this book.
It was really amazing. Goes back years and years ago, but I remember being a kid, and we were getting these, my mother was getting these Reader's Digest condensed series, and one of the books in it that really turned me on to the genre was I forget who was the writer, but it was The Fan. It was about, do you remember The Fan? This personality that was very popular, this female personality, and this fan that kept writing to her and was obsessed with her, and just it became a tremendous thriller, and it was just really riveting. And that was one of the first early on as a kid that turned me on to the genre. And who are some of the folks that inspire you along the way, whether they are writers or movie directors, whatever it may be, or all of the above?
I mean, it's just creatives in general. Stephen King has been extremely nice to me. I mean, the fact that he let me use some of his characters, that was huge. James Patterson read my second book and asked me to write a book with them. We're actually on number 3 right now. We've been working together for a while. I know Dean Koontz really well. I tend to reach out. I'm a firm believer in learning from those who have been there and done something right. So I tend to reach out to the biggest names in the industry to try and pick their brains and figure out what works and what doesn't. I mean, Patterson has taught me a lot about the craft of writing, but also marketing. He's out there doing television commercials for books where
Yeah.
nobody else is doing that. And he came from a marketing background. He was actually doing that before he started writing. He wrote the Toys R Us theme song of
That's
all
right.
things. Like most people don't realize that. So
I can hear
it,
that in my head.
yeah, it doesn't go away. I mean, you heard it when you were a kid, and it just kind of lives there for the rest of your life. But he enjoys that, I think, just as much as the writing, and having somebody like that, over my shoulder, telling me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, and kind of guiding me a little bit is huge.
That's fantastic. So, how did that come to pass? How did you end up linking up with James Patterson in that way?
Well, he
His
originally,
one of the Coast to
yeah.
Coast Murders.
Yeah, that was our first one together. He read The Fourth Monkey, and I had sent it to him to get a blurb, one of those little, one sentence things that they put on the back of the book. And I didn't really expect much to come out of it. But he read the book, and he found out that I was going to be down in Florida, and we just made plans to go out to lunch, and
Yeah.
we just started talking about various book ideas. And I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, only because he's a prolific outliner. Like he uses outlines for everything. He's never written a book without one, and I've never used an outline. I'm kind of the opposite. I figured that would be a deal breaker. But he came around and he decided to give writing a book without an outline a try, and that's Coast to Coast was his first book that he did like that. And I think in a lot of ways it was very refreshing for him because it was something different. He writes like a machine, and this was something very odd and very different, out of left field. So it kind of lit a fire under him that he probably hasn't had for a while. And we had a lot of fun with it. But for our second one, comes out in August. It's called The Noise. He wanted me to try it his way, so he wrote the outline for that one, and then he was heavily involved in the writing process. And that one's in the works right now for a TV show as well. That was a great time too. So he kind of showed me what works, from that standpoint. For the third one, he's trying to teach me how to outline. So who knows where it's going to go.
Now, The Fourth Monkey, that was in development, right? A couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was with CBS.
CBS, yeah.
There was a bidding war for the film and TV rights, and it actually sold for that before it sold for print.
Right.
And CBS came to the table with something really unique. They said that they could make a feature film for Fourth Monkey and a follow-up TV series that would follow the rest of the story, knowing that it was going to be a trilogy. And at the time, the other 2 books weren't out yet. And that was something that the other people, the other studios weren't able to do. They were all either going to make a movie or they were going to make a TV show. But one of the things that I quickly learned in this business is a lot of stuff gets optioned. Very few things actually get made. And there are so many moving parts involved in creating a TV show or a movie. With Fourth Monkey, the writers changed a couple of times. The producers changed a few times. The directors changed a couple of times. They redid their option, I think twice. And then eventually they let it go, which I was actually kind of glad about, because by the time that happened, the full trilogy was out. So now my film agent, it was, at that point was able to go back out with the entire trilogy. And there's a lot going on there that I can't really talk about just yet, but it's, the fact that they were able to take all 3 books instead of the one, I was really thrilled about. And a lot of stuff has happened, just in the last couple of years. Like streaming television to me is fantastic, because when you get on the phone with directors and producers and they start talking about your book, one of the first things that always came up on the feature film side is, well, we're going to have to take all this stuff out in order to get it down to 2 hours. So like these characters are going to get combined. This is going to have to happen to the storyline. Like it really changes the story. When you talk to people from like Netflix or HBO that are doing, like an 8 or 10 episode run, it's kind of the opposite. They can tell the full story and they start asking for material that, didn't make the book. Like, what did you cut out? What else can we use? And, like HBO has done some fantastic things with like True Detective, and, every show that I watch on there just seems to get better and better. So I'm kind of leaning in that direction for all my projects. I'm kind of hoping that they land in that kind of scenario. But a lot of it is really out of your control, as the author.
This one here too. Tell us about this one here. Now, this one is also is this being optioned as well?
Well, that's actually just the Dracula book that I wrote the introduction on. The one you're thinking of is called Dracula.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote
Yeah.
that with Bram Stoker's great grandnephew, Dacre Stoker. That's the one. Yeah, that got picked up by Paramount with Andy Machete attached to direct, the guy who did It for Stephen King. And that's another one. They've re-upped their option, I think 2 or 3 times at this point. They've got a writer on board. They're going through the script. So we'll see where it goes.
Tell us a little bit about that one for those who want to check that out.
This was a crazy story. So Forsaken, my first book, was up for the best debut novel for the Horror Authors Association for a Stoker Award. And I was at the conference attending that, and I ended up sitting next to Dacre Stoker at a book signing table for about an hour or so. And I just kind of picked his brain because I had a living relative of Bram Stoker sitting next to me. I wanted to know everything that he did about Bram because I'm a huge fan of Dracula. And he started asking me about the things that I had done as a book doctor and a ghostwriter, and we just had a great conversation. And when that ended, I thought that was it. But he kept trying to catch me in the hallway, and he said, "Hey, we need to sit down. I've got something I want to run by you." And it turns out that conversation was more of a job interview. He knew what I had done in the past, and he wanted to kind of feel me out as somebody to actually work with. He brought me out to the lunch or breakfast on the very last day, and he sprung this on me. He said, our family has been trying to find somebody to write a prequel to Dracula for a while now, and we really like your writing style, and we'd be interested to find out if you'd want to do it. And at first I thought he was punking me. I looked up and waited for Ashton Kutcher to come running into the room with a camera, but that didn't happen. It turned out it was a legit offer. He sprung 2 things on me that really sold me on the project. The first was that Bram originally tried to sell Dracula.
Ashton, hold on, he's here. Ashton, no.
So he said Bram originally tried to sell Dracula as a true story, which I didn't know. But apparently at the time, Jack the Ripper was active in London, and the publisher was really worried about what would happen if we came out with a book, that said vampires are real, because people believed in that back then. Like seances were, there was no television then either. So like they had seances and they believed in the paranormal. So like the idea of vampires being real, it wasn't a big stretch.
Did you ever go to a seance yourself? I was invited to one.
I've been to
years
many
ago as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to a few, especially when I was doing that newspaper column back in the day. I don't know that any of them were real, but they're definitely entertaining.
Right. So this is really cool. Congratulations with this here, and some of the cool things happening with it, huh?
Yeah, that was a fun book to write for sure.
Yeah. Here's another one. Tell us about this one for those again who are checking everything out.
Yeah, so that's the sequel to Fourth Monkey, the second book in the series, and it's probably the twistiest book I think I've ever written. It also ends with the words of death. It ends with "to be concluded," because I came to the point where like I could either fit the entire 4MK series into 2 books if I really condensed it, or I knew that it would work better as a trilogy. So I ended up ending this book, literally with "to be concluded," knowing that the final book would be coming out and would finalize the entire story. And I'm really glad that I did that, because I was able to tell the story the way that I wanted to, and not cut out 200-300 pages to try and to make it fit into 2 books.
Yeah. The Fourth Monkey, I know, is really something special. You mentioned that a couple of times. Tell us about this one here.
Yeah, this one was fun. I had the idea for it for a while, and essentially, without not really a spoiler, the serial killer dies at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
So the killer has been operating in Chicago for 5 years, and he's got his motive is fairly simple. He kidnaps a girl, then he mails a body part back to the family. He starts off with her ear, and it's always in a white box tied off with a black string and a note that says "Hear no evil." Then her tongue comes after that, and then her eyes, and then they find the body. So a guy is walking to a mailbox in Chicago on the street to mail a package, and he's crossing the street. He gets hit by a city bus and killed. And when the police show up, they realize he was about to mail a white box with a tied in a black string with an ear inside. So they know that they've got their serial killer. They know that he's dead. They know that he's got another victim out there somewhere, but nobody knows who she is or where she is, and he doesn't have any type of ID on him, so they don't know who he is. And you would think that a book would kind of fizzle out at that point because your killer is dead, but it's a roller coaster for sure, and it just gets crazy from that point on.
June Rachel Zanaspa, who's in Maryland, says yes, chilling book for sure. How do you describe your writing style? I know that suspense, horror, sometimes going in and out of each, which probably the agent is probably like, well, pick one, or which one are you doing? But you don't, in the research I've done, you don't like to be boxed in. You like the variety. You like different aspects of things, right? You don't want to just be labeled or typecast as, okay, he's just known for this one particular, he might be fabulous at it, but he's just known for that one particular predictable style of story and writing style. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to get caught up in a formula, and writing that same book over and over again. And honestly, that's what a lot of the big publishers want out of their authors, because you hit a particular formula and it works well. They want that same book over and over and over again. And to me, that would be like being trapped in Groundhog Day. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I love horror. I love thrillers. I love bouncing back and forth. So I reached out to a couple people at the beginning of all this and got some advice. And Patterson had told me that, he kind of got stuck in this too. His very first book was called The Thomas Berriman Number. Nobody has it other than his mother. It didn't sell that well. But his second book was Along Came a Spider, and obviously that hit really well. And then he had a series of books very similar to that, all with the nursery rhyme titles, all about a serial killer and the cops trying to catch that killer. Then he got bored and he wrote a book about a girl with wings called When the Wind Blows. And his fans got completely, like it came out of left field. Like they didn't expect that, because they at that point they were conditioned to expect a certain formula out of him. He told me all about that, and I reached out to Dean Koontz as well. And Dean told me, what you really want to do is try and bounce back and forth. If that's your plan, if that's what you want to do it from the get go. So, rope them in with one genre, then go to the other genre and back and forth and back and forth. But his key, to his advice was make sure you find a common thread between all of them. And in my case, that's suspense. I bill myself as a suspense author that, it'll be a suspense novel that has a little bit of horror or a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but suspense is common between all of them. And I like to think that it's working. I mean, I know that I see fans bouncing back and forth between all of them. But you're right. From the business standpoint, the second you turn in a book to an agent, they want to put you in one of those boxes, because they need to know how to sell you to the publishers, and the publishers need to know how to, the editor there needs to know how to sell you to their marketing people, and the marketing people need to know where, in the bookstore you're going to end up, so that they can talk to those people. So when you bounce back and forth, it confuses and aggravates everybody. But at this point, I think I've proven that I can sell in both genres. I've proven that the fans are coming over. So I think that the heavy lifting is done at this point, and they seem to be on board with it. And I'm modeling it after some of the big guys. Stephen King does this. When I go to the store, I've got Billy Summers sitting on my desk right now. They sent me an ARC. Like if I saw that in the store, I don't need to know what it's about. It says Stephen King on the cover. I know I'm going to read it and I'm going to enjoy it. Koontz is the same way. Patterson is the same way. I've got a laundry list of authors that I just know that that title is going to be strong, and that's what I'm shooting for. Whether or not I get there, who knows? But I'm working on it.
You're working on it, constantly working on it and tweaking and fine tuning as you go along. So that's the genres. As far as the style, how do you describe your particular style, JD?
I summed it up in the author's note in Caller's Game as literary popcorn, because I really couldn't come up with another way to describe it. I'm not out there to sell, a moral message. I'm not going to teach you anything. You're not going to learn anything from my books, and I'm not going to preach politics or any of that kind of thing. My entire goal is to give, readers an escape. Whether it's from the current situation or whatever. When they pick up one of my books, I want them to be able to forget about everything going on right now and just focus on that story and just feel like they're being swept away to a different place for a little bit. And that's it. That's my entire goal, is just to entertain. So literary popcorn.
I like that. That's cool. Here's another one. Tell us about this. Now, this was a short, right?
Yeah, this one is, if anybody can find it, it's a very difficult one to find. I think it ended up in an anthology in one. All my short stories that I had out there, they all got pulled back by my agent, essentially because they got sold to other places. So they're all either coming out in other novels, or we're holding them back for when I put a book out there of short stories. But yeah, so that one snuck out because I indie published it at the beginning. It can be found in certain places, but it's pretty tricky to track down.
That's a tough. You've got a rare find if you find one of those.
Yeah.
How about this one here too? Tell us about this one.
Same thing. That's a short story that I had submitted, back in the day before the novels took off. So if you can find that, grab it up.
Grab quick.
Yeah, even I don't have a copy of that one.
Some of our viewers watching, and we welcome everybody to the Jim Master Show Live. My special guest is JD Barker, New York Times and international best-selling author, suspense author, and more. reading this one and loving it. She has a broken thing where her heart should be. Tell us about this one.
This one, I got a ton of pushback from everybody. They didn't like the title, that the book was too long, like all these different things. So this was really a test case for me. We got offers from the traditional publishers, and they were solid because I had the sales numbers behind me. So we were pretty confident the audience would come along for the ride. But I wanted to try something different. So I ended up using my indie publishing company, my own company, to put it out in English. So US, UK, Canada, and all the English speaking territories. And then we sold all the foreign rights to the typical publishers. So Random House and guys like that. And it came out in, I think about 30 different countries or so. In random languages. And it's done extremely well. So I kind of stumbled into a hybrid publishing model that works really well. For me anyway, because at this point, like I don't need the big payday from an advance anymore. What I'm really concerned with is just staying in front of my audience. And the one thing that you've got zero control over when you're with a traditional publisher is your publication date. So, I purposely look at my schedule and I try to get something out there every 6 months or so. And this was a book I was able to throw in a slot where I had an empty space where I felt like I needed to just get out there. And it's, to this day, it seems to be a favorite of a lot of my readers.
Do you have a particular favorite? Is there one that is near and dear to you? Is it the first one, Forsaken, or is there a particular one that, well, I really nailed it. That's just the one that is my personal favorite.
Not really. I guess they're you had mentioned them being like your kids, and they
Yeah.
sort of are. I mean, the latest and greatest tends to be my favorite, whatever I'm currently working on. But they all have unique things about them. Like I really miss working in the 4MK universe and those characters. I miss Anson Bishop and Sam Porter, my detective. To the point where at some point I may revisit them again. A book like She Has a Broken Thing, I absolutely loved writing that, but I feel I told the entire story. But at the same time, I couldn't help myself, and I left it, and it ends with a little bit of a cliffhanger, so I could keep it going if I wanted to. But I've got so many different stories that I want to tell, and I write pretty quick, but it's still only about 2 to 3 novels a year, and I don't know that I'll ever hit the end of that particular list of ideas.
How about we talked a little bit about film, television, these being turned into, visual works. Is that something you've always aspired to, or is that sort of the icing on the cake of writing these books?
It's definitely, I think it's like the holy grail, but at the same time, the author's got so little control over it. I just kind
Yeah.
of keep my head down and just keep working on the next book. And I had mentioned earlier how the players change a lot, and it's one of those things I try to stay on top of what's going on with my various projects, but there's so many different people involved, so many different ideas. They typically don't come to the author and ask for, writing advice. Like they don't want me to weigh in on scripts or things like that. Mainly because they've got a machine in place. There's so many moving parts involved in making a movie or a TV show. They like to work with people that are familiar with that process, people they've worked with before. So they tend to stick with their little group. And I'm an executive producer on everything, but I have yet to pick up the phone and have one of those guys on the other end asking me, for story advice.
Now, at first, were you ever nervous or concerned about that? Meaning, these are your babies, these are your works, and there's a lot of emotion, love, and a time and attention and blood, sweat, and tears put in them. And then when you have to sort of release a little bit, let go, and then it goes into these other hands as they then take them to another level, is there ever any like, oh, well, I really want to, be there with you as you're doing it type thing?
No, I think one of the things, if you're gonna sell a large number of books, you have to be able to let go.
Yeah.
You need to realize that it is a product in the end. A very wise man once told me the only thing that's actually yours is the written book. That's your words. That's about as close to what came out of your head as it's going to get for readers. Because even once they do an audiobook, now you've got the narrator's take on your words, so it's already different. When a studio picks it up, there's no telling what direction it's going to go in, what they're going to change, what they're going to use, what they're going to keep. It's best to kind of just watch it all from a distance.
Are these available as audiobooks as well?
Yeah, they're all audio.
They're all audio as well. Talk to us a little bit about those who, I know you like to mentor. I know you like to inspire others as well, who are up and coming writers, and then try to figure out who they are, their style, where they want to go with things. They're dabbling in this, and then next day they're trying this. Tell us a little about some of that and the fact that you really enjoy inspiring others who want to do this kind of work.
Yeah, well, when you write the first book, you basically have a lifetime to knock out that first one, and if it takes off, you've got about 6 months to get the next one out. You kind of end up on this roller coaster that just doesn't stop moving, and I got caught up in that at the beginning a little bit, but I really missed what I was doing as a ghostwriter and a book doctor. Taking a story that it was almost there, was 80%, 90% of where it needed to be, and finding the diamond in that rough. Like I really missed shaping those stories. So I started reaching back out and working with people, and I mentor people now. If you go to my website, there's a link for that, and I help out any way that I can. And it's partly because I really miss doing it. And it's also because I've had so many people that have helped me. Like I wouldn't be where I am right now without everybody that reached out and helped me get to this point. I want to pay it forward as much as I can, so I try to do what I can there.
Are you always writing? I did a little research and I think I saw that you write like several hundred words a day. And this is something that you really want to make sure you keep doing, because you may just be writing and all of a sudden some piece of inspiration develops from just the writing process itself. And are you more of a morning person or a night person? One of my friends, screen playwriter, he would always be very creative at night for him, like 2 a.m. when the house is quiet and the family is in bed and there's no phones ringing and there's no emails to respond to, text, social media, all of that. The world is quiet. He could think and really get to his typewriter and just go at it. Sometimes even waking up out of a dream and running to the computer quickly and even sort of trying to document what he was just dreaming. Creative late at night. How about for you?
Well, when you're working the corporate job, you kind of write whenever you can. And I'm always encouraging people to do that. I think if you want to write full time, you need to write every day, even if it's just a little bit. And if you're working a day job, try getting up in the morning. At one point I was getting up at 4:30 or 5, and I would write before I went into the office. And then I later tried writing at home. Like after I got home from work. And you kind of have to feel that out because everybody is different. For me, now that I'm doing this full time, like my schedule is pretty rigid, which you kind of heard when we're setting up this interview.
You were just on in Bulgaria just before us.
Yeah, afternoons are crazy. So I get up first thing in the morning, which for me is 7 o'clock. The crack of 7 o'clock in the morning. I wander to my office, which is downstairs. I grab my cup of coffee on the way, and that's my daily commute. I turn off the internet when I first sit down at my desk because there's so many distractions that will come in if that is actually flipped on. And I work on my words. I knock out 2,000 to 3,000 words every day. Which is a novel of about 3 months or so. And I usually wrap that up at about 10:30 or 11, and then I turn on the internet, and that's where all the emails start flooding in, and I have all these questions from my agent and all these different things that I'm working on. I've got to respond to that and kind of deal with the business side of things. And then 11 o'clock or 11:30, interviews start, and that's a worldwide thing, which I didn't realize at the beginning of all this. But like the Fourth Monkey just came out in countries, even though it's been years here in the U.S., it's still coming out in other places around the world.
Your work's in like 150 countries plus, from what I've heard, which is, I mean, does that shock you? Or do you ever say, is there ever like a pinchable moment saying, my God, the world, people really respond to my work. This is beyond any expectations I could have set for myself.
It's a weird thing because it kind of creeps up on you. I mean, unless you're like Gillian Flynn, where Gone Girl hit and all of a sudden everybody knew who she was like the next day. Most authors are more like me, where you gently build that audience and people just start to know who you are. But I remember like the first time I went on an airplane and saw somebody reading one of my books, like that to me was that's where I felt like I actually got somewhere. Hitting the New York Times list, obviously that was a huge accomplishment too. So it comes in these little increments, but it just seems to build. Every time I step out of the house, I seem to run into something. At this point.
Are you an observer of life? What are some of the things that inspire you? Those germs of inspiration during the course of your day?
Yeah, absolutely. So I finished the business side of things at 2:45. I've got a little alarm goes off, and that I'm done. I get up from my desk, and the rest of the day is just on other things. I usually go for a run at that point. I do about 4 or 5 miles, and I use that time to kind of plot out what I'm going to write the next day. And then the rest of the night is just all geared towards family, just spending time with my wife and my daughter, and just absorbing the fact that, all this has happened, and, try to take advantage of it, and smell some of those roses.
Yeah.
But like you had mentioned, before, like with your friend, like I'm constantly writing stuff down. I've got a recording app on my watch. So if I get ideas, I can quickly note it. My phone is always right next to me at night. So if I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with something, I can write that down as well. Like it never
Yeah.
stops. It never
Yeah.
quits.
That makes sense. I think true artists, that's what they do. I find myself doing the same thing often. I use this as a reference. We had Melissa Manchester, music legend, on the show recently, and we were talking about, her process as well and what inspires her. And she said there's times where she could just be sitting on the couch, or she could be, in the living room or the kitchen, and something hits her. There's a source of inspiration that just pops in like an aha moment for her. And she runs right to the piano and just starts working it out. And she presses record on her recorder. And it's just whatever's pouring out of her musically at that time. She wants to get it recorded and saved. And she's working it out on the piano, because the further she separates herself from that initial brainstorm aha moment, that sensation of inspiration, it gets diluted, it starts to disappear, it starts to morph and twist into other things that it wasn't, and you can't necessarily recreate it when you have that moment. Do you find that too? Sometimes she's running to the piano, you're running to the computer, and you're like, whatever this is, let's just get this down and record this.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, any type of creativity, I think it's just like working out. It's like you're building that creative muscle, and the more you do it, the stronger it gets. It doesn't shut it down on you. One of the tricks that I learned early on is when I'm writing, I always get up. When I finish, I stop mid sentence. I always know what's coming next, and what that basically does is, as I go about the rest of my day, my brain continues to work that story, because I know how that sentence ends. I know what's going to come after that, and then my brain starts working on what's next and what's next and what's next. The people that I've talked to that have burnt out on this, they're the ones who kind of sit down and, they write a crazy amount of words, 5,000-6,000 words. They have these marathon sessions, and then they're just exhausted at the end, and they're staring at their screen, and they've got nothing left. Like they've squeezed all the water out of the rock. And then the next day they sit down and they stare at that blank screen for hours, sometimes trying to come up with whatever's going to happen. So for me, as long as I quit mid sentence, I never have that problem. As soon as I sit down, I already know what's coming next. I hit the ground running.
That's incredible. So the response of family, I mean, obviously family have been with you since the beginning. What is it like for them seeing the incredible successes you've had doing something that you absolutely love?
It's funny because my mom still thinks you can't make a living as a writer.
Yeah.
She's constantly bugging
Don't
me
go
about
into
that.
writing. Don't be an actor. Right.
Yeah. High school reunions are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I just had my 30th, and that was a weird thing, because it sort of evolved at the high school reunion. The first one, after I'd started writing, a couple people knew what I was up to. The second one, a lot of people knew what I was up to. And this last one, everybody knew. So it's a weird thing. I mean, but family and friends, it's cool to, like certain ones have stuck with me from the beginning, and they're the same people that were, my best friends back in high school.
That's really, really cool. What are some other things you do separate from the writing, hobbies and things? And a little bit about JD. Obviously, you have your family, you're working on the house. You like to sail too, don't you?
No.
You don't. Didn't you once have a boat in Florida?
We did, but we went water skiing.
Nice. So you
Yeah,
were behind the boat.
we were behind the boat. Sailing up here is actually something they teach in elementary school. So I'm
They do.
hoping my daughter's going to get into it. My wife just bought a kayak, so they go out on that every once in a while. I love to look at the water, but I'm deathly afraid of sharks.
Yeah.
We've got our share up here in New England.
Cape Cod and Maine, they've had a few as well. Any other writers in the family?
No, I'm it.
You see your daughter having an inspiration?
She's only 3. She's
Yeah.
definitely, she loves books. I mean, we
Yeah.
watch her on the baby cam in the morning, and she wakes up and she grabs a book off her shelf and kind of reads to her stuffed animals. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes. I don't know. My sister runs a hospital down in Florida, so she's about as far removed from this as you can get. My brother's a computer programmer.
What do you see as the future of your work? Do you have other visions, bucket lists, things that you want to do with all of this extraordinary body of work, JD? I mean, you're just pumping out incredible material that people are it's really resonating with people, and getting the notice of Hollywood and other areas, which is, I mean, kudos to you. You're doing what you love. You're living your bliss, which is a rare thing for people. They don't always get to do. Everything you've done has been sort of like this train on the track. Doing this has led to this, has led to that, has led to that. It's a nice forward momentum. But when you look forward, if not everybody likes to look forward, they're just like, hey, freestyle, let me just live the moment. Whatever happens, happens. Do you have a trajectory as far as what you want to do going forward in bucket list ideas?
Not really. I just want to keep improving. You just keep, I've got a bunch of books that I want to write. I'm hoping to knock out as many of those as possible. I've been blessed with a lot of really cool friends in the industry, kind of guiding my hand there. So we'll see where it goes. A lot of these projects is weird. Like it feels like I've captured lightning in a bottle, multiple times. And I tell people, like, don't stand next to me outside, because sooner or later karma's going to try and even this out, and you don't want to be right next to me when that lightning comes down.
Yeah,
but you just never know. I think as long as I keep doing what I'm doing and people appreciate it, it feels like some of these, the projects will continue.
Have you ever broken it down as to what it is about your material that really resonates with people, and the various genres that you are dabbling in? Suspense, thriller, crime, horror. What is it about this that just really draws people in, you think?
I've been told it's my writer voice. It's one of those things that's, like I've been asked to like participate in MFA programs and things like that. And like, I've never had any formal training in writing other than, like high school English. So I'm like deathly afraid of stepping into a classroom, because like, I don't know what my magic formula is, but it definitely seems to be working, and I don't want to screw it up. So I'm afraid that if I learn the wrong thing, like it could throw a wrench into the entire process. But, for whatever reason, what I'm doing seems to be working. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Some people say when it comes to their creativity that they are inspired by other things even greater than themselves, almost like they're a conduit or facilitator of the energy that's passing through them. Do you ever feel that sometimes? Do you ever feel like, you're there doing the actual physical work, but there's some other inspirations flowing through you from wherever that's also causing this to happen?
I think to a certain extent, every creative kind of feels that, when I'm in the zone, and I think that's kind of what you're describing. Like I'm watching the book play out in my head, almost like it's a movie, and I'm just there documenting it. And usually that's where the best writing comes from. If that isn't happening, the words tend to feel forced, and they sound forced. And, a lot of times when I go back the next day and look at it, that's the kind of stuff that gets cut. It's the writing that's done in that flow state tends to be what sticks for, through the end of the book.
Has, working from home, which you do anyway, with this pandemic, how has that affected your work, if at all? Obviously, you haven't been able to really travel and meets and greets and book signings and things of that nature. But how have you been dealing with it and getting through it? And usually I'll say to people, how have you stayed connected, creative, and sane through it all? And most people will say, well, I'm still working on the sane part, Jim.
Yeah, that's true for sure. I used to get sick all the time. Like when you go to a book store and you do a talk and you shake 50 to 100 hands, you tend to walk out of there with some kind of bug. And since this pandemic happened, I haven't been sick once. So like I'm loving that. And at the beginning of all this, it was fun to reach out on Zoom and not have to actually leave my house. But at this point, I'm jonesing to go somewhere. Like if they invited me to an Amish donut festival down in Pennsylvania, I'd probably hop in the car and just go, because I really feel like I need to get out of the house.
That sounds pretty good. An Amish Donut Festival. You'll see him next at the Amish Donut Festival in Pennsylvania, folks. When you look back at all of this, and again, even though you've been doing it for a long time, it's almost as if you're still just getting started, because each book is something fresh and something new. What are some of those blessings and joys in your life, JD, that propel you to continue to connect with all of us and create these great works?
Honestly, I think I get the most inspiration just out of my daughter. Just watching her face light up when she opens up a new book, like that to me is enough to put my butt in the seat and write that next book.
Yeah.
That kind of inspiration. Like I was talking to Patterson the other day, and his goal at this point is just to get kids reading.
Yeah.
There's not that many of them anymore. Like my demographic is women 45 and over tends to be my primary audience. There's not a whole lot of younger people that are actually picking up books anymore, and I would really like to see that change.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of that, what would you say to somebody that's watching right now who is stuck? Maybe they're having writer's block. Have you ever dealt with writer's block yourself, and they're trying to finish things off and they just can't get there?
Yeah, I've never had writer's block myself, but I'm constantly telling people just to try to pound out those 200 to 300 words a day. It's only a paragraph, even if it's garbage. Make sure
Yeah.
you're sitting at the desk. Make sure you're getting in that chair every single day and writing something. And sooner or later you will hit the finish line. And it gets easier. It's just like working out. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So you need to do it every single day. The ones that tend to struggle, to me anyway, the ones that I run into are the ones that are like weekend warriors. They write on Fridays and Saturdays, or one day a week, and that's extremely tricky. Like if I take a week off from a book, I've got to go back and refresh my memory and try to get back into that frame of mind. The more time that goes by, your writing style actually changes. The word choice you use, your cadence, your structure, all that kind of thing evolves as well. So you really want to try and write every single day. And if you do that, that first book is a challenge, but you will get it done. The second book gets a little bit easier, and before you know it, you've got 8 or 9 of them behind you.
That's really, really cool. I tell you, you have one of the neatest bookshelves I've ever seen behind you, color coordinated. It's like perfect.
The bookshelf was one of my pandemic projects. I built that I guess about 6 months ago or so. The books are actually all my own, and what ends up happening is, like, every time they do a print run, the publisher sends me a case of whatever edition that is. So I've got like all these copies of my own books. So I figure I have to put them somewhere. I can't bring myself to throw away books. I don't think the library at this point is going to take any more if I walk in there with another one, unless I start venturing out of my county to new libraries. So yeah, all the books behind me are my own. And if you show up at my house to work on absolutely anything, you're going to walk out with an armload of them.
You mentioned the age range for the typical reader. Do you have a vision of who that typical reader is too, or is it becoming atypical for you?
Well, one of the things that I learned early on by bouncing back and forth between genres is that I pick up audience from the different genres and kind of carry them over to the other one. So I've been trying to do the same thing with readers. So, the people at the publishing department, the marketing staff, they will tell me, it's my robot vacuum signaling that it's 2:00.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
of course you have a robot vacuum.
It's about to get loud in here. Let me kill that. Hold on one sec.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. And there's the chair. There you go. Our audience always sees chairs. It's a really funny thing, because we've had a lot of guests sometimes where they've had to step out. They wanted to get their Oscar to show us or whatever it is. And there's this thing where we've always seen the guest's empty chair. So now it's like this running joke where I'm going to do a whole episode where I just show the chairs of the guests, and the viewers have to guess who sat in that chair.
Whose chair it is.
The Empty Chair by J.D. Barker.
Now I forgot what the question was.
We were talking about, let's see, so did I. I was so thrown off by the chair. But so this is cool. This was really great, my friend.
Even my headphones are quitting at this point.
Yeah, I know you got to scoot off, but thanks for sharing all of this with us, and all this great time. And we wish you continued success. You really are, amazing at what you do. And Juanita in South Africa says, "Oh, I want to come to your house. Need an armful of your books." She's hooked. I was telling her about your incredible work, and she's now a huge fan of yours as well. Thanks for joining us, JD. This was awesome. We appreciate all the time. Wish you continued success. We'll keep the porch light on for you. I hope this show met, whatever expectations you had, and that you'll join us again. It was a real pleasure.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You be well, and we'll look for the next book soon. Okay.
All right. Take care of yourself.
All right. Thanks, JD. Bye-bye now. Bye. JD Barker, live from New Hampshire. Jennifer Barry in Pennsylvania is saying here, JD, thanks for spending time with us. And you're in Pennsylvania, so maybe you'll see him and the Amish area having one of those donuts, as he mentioned. June Rachelson Opspa here says, thank you so much. I'm a writer and such great knowledge. It really is, isn't it? It's really, really cool when you have an opportunity to engage with somebody like JD. I want to show you just again some of the books, and you could look for these, online and bookstores as well. And there's a couple there that are very rare, like this one, which was one of his shorts. And of course, this one with James Patterson. He's had an opportunity to work with James Patterson as well. This one is a toughie to find. This is Ancient Enemies. Here's another cool one here that we've talked about at great length. And this one was another one that we referenced as well. So many cool ones. And of course, it was a pleasure having JD on the show today. And again, maybe you got a chance to just discover him for the very first time here on the Jim Masters Show Live. Really, really cool. And again, if you like thriller and you like suspense and you like crime, horror, investigative, all that kind of work, I think you'll like his work. This has been a wonderful lunch break. Thank you, JD and Jim. Looking forward to seeing everyone tonight. Yes, tonight we do have Robin from Batman joining us here on the Jim Masters Show Live, which is going to be really, really cool. So join us at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, as Burt Ward joins us here on the Jim Masters Show Live. He's joining us live from California. We're looking forward to that. Just taking a look at some more of these comments coming in here from our incredible viewers. So again, Burt Ward, Batman's Robin, is live here on the Jim Masters Show Live, coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific tonight. A couple more comments coming in here, and then we're going to take off and have some lunch. And then I'm on the air in my professional work in about 10 minutes. Thank you both for an interesting afternoon. I'll catch you tonight. Go back to work. Absolutely, Kathy Short. And thanks for joining us. Juanita says that was an amazing conversation. Thank you, JD and Jim. My pleasure. Great conversation. Thank you very much, Amy, as well. Thank you for watching, June, as well. And Jennifer, thank you for joining us as well. And I'm glad you were able to join in for a little bit there with your lunch break. And Lancaster Pal. That's it, because you're there in Pennsylvania, right? You guys are terrific. And everybody that's watching, whether you're watching live and commenting or you're watching this later in our archives, all over 400 episodes of the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series are available for you in our archives. They're all on YouTube at Jim Masters TV. We welcome you to subscribe to our channel. We are here just about 7 days a week. Today, we're doing 2 episodes of JMS Live. We had, of course, JD Barker with us just moments ago, the incredible New York Times and international best-selling author. Check him out. He's amazing. And keep watch for some of the other works, television and film, as a result of the books. And really, really cool. We wish him the very, very best, and we'll have him back. But also, we are here all the time with these amazing shows, inspiring conversation, levity, lovity, and all kinds of cool things, and something different. This is an entertainment lifestyle talk show series where we really share a lot of cool guests, amazing guests doing all kinds of different things. A very special place we've created here. If this is your first time checking out the Jim Masters Show Live, thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jim Masters. I do this work professionally in television and radio, and I've been doing it for years. And we created this show as an outlet, sort of an extension to my professional work as an on-air personality, journalist, writer, actor, television and radio host, writer, producer, stage MC, and voiceover artist in TV, in multimedia, in radio, on stage. And this has been a blessing. We've been doing this show for about a year now, as of May 2021. We're planning a big anniversary episode. Our anniversary was last week, 1 year. Congratulations to everybody. And thank you for watching and viewing and supporting and tagging and sharing and celebrating this show. Sharing the links, really, really cool. We love when you can do that. Promoting it on Facebook, Instagram, telling everybody about our show, and also subscribing to that YouTube channel is a biggie too, because that really does help the show and it helps our series. It allows us to continue to deliver this great content for all of you. My hair was like that. It was short a year ago when we started the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series. This is 1 year. This hair has actually marked the 1 year anniversary of our series, which is pretty cool. You guys are the best. Thanks so much again for watching. And again, we thank our very special guest, New York Times and international best-selling author, J.D. Barker. It was really a pleasure to have him here. Talked about his life, we said they're in New Hampshire too, which is really beautiful. It's a great state. If you ever get a chance to go, make sure you go. Taking a look at this. Go for 2 years, Jim. Maybe even longer. Christine says, thanks, Jim and JD, for an interesting conversation. It was cool to hear the schedule and thinking of an author. See you all this evening. Another double lovely day. Yeah. Burt Ward, Robin from Batman is on tonight. And Jennifer from Allentown, Pennsylvania, also saying, I'll see you tonight. All right, gang, we're going to scoot off. Thanks for watching this episode of the Jim Masters Show Live. We appreciate it. It was a pleasure having you here. And we'll see you guys tonight, okay? We'll be here at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, which is our regularly scheduled time for more entertainment, inspiring conversation, light, love, levity, all of it right here for you on the Jim Masters Show Live. You guys take care. Thanks for being with us. And we'll see you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. See you again. Thanks for joining us.